so much for that introduction. I'm a little more boring because I did not prepare slides. This is just a picture of me. Yeah! Because I love pictures of me. If you want to tag me in one, that's where we go. My mom would be so proud. So, a little bit about myself. I actually found out about this event a little last minute. I found out I was a speaker because someone tagged me on Twitter and said, "Look forward to seeing you." That was yesterday, so it's a bit of a shock for me. But I absolutely love being here, and I love all the speakers that I'm speaking with. And so what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about who I am and how I got to where I am today. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit as to a couple of instances that have sparked why I thought this campaign was so important. And lastly, I'll kind of wrap up with things that I kind of took away from this personally and as part of my team and as part of the company as well. So a little bit of background of who I am and what I do. I'm going to bite my tongue in this, but I am not an engineer, and I didn't believe I was an engineer for the longest time. And the reason I didn't believe that I was an engineer for the longest time is because I didn't have the formal background. I went to college because I thought that would make my parents happy. I actually went to college for 7 years, and then the dean pulled me into their office and said, "You need to leave." And so after 7 years, what I realized is that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I made a central thesis and talked a little bit about what I loved and what I learned at school. And I thought that all the employers out there would think that I am so creative for making up my own major, and they did not. So I was unemployed for a while. And one of the things that I fell back on was I was always messing with somebody's electronics. I have a twin brother who can attest to not ever letting me play his video games because I would take them apart and then just leave them and wander around. And so when I talk a little bit about my experience, I went from, I needed a job, so I worked at Best Buy. And then when I worked at Best Buy, I was fixing people's computers. And I had to put them back together. So that's kind of what put me in that trajectory. From there, I went to a really large enterprise company that many of you are aware of, but I will not name. And now I've moved around for a little bit, and I'm happily at Twilio as a cloud service engineer. And through my journey, non-traditional journey into me accepting that I'm an engineer and coming to terms with that, I had a lot of hurdles. And I think everybody here has a lot of hurdles. But some of mine I gave into, and that's something that I really hope people here don't do. So it was very microaggressions. It was always people who would say things like, I had to pick up a desktop once, and someone came by and said, "Oh, don't worry about that. Someone will pick it up for you because you're pretty." I think that was a compliment, but it really wasn't. Or I would be helping somebody out, and they would be typing on their computer, and I'd say, "Oh, wow, you're really pounding away at that." And the response would be, "Oh, you should hear me from my wife." And all of these responses were so natural, and they didn't affect me anymore because they happened so often. And then you'd have a lot more smaller microaggressions, like people in my life that said, "It's great that you want to code. You really need that when you become a PM." Or you should probably go into sales instead. Or if you dressed a little nicer, you could probably be more front end or customer facing. And I will probably never wear a dress. I'm very comfortable in pants and Nikes. And right now I'm wearing a collar, which is a big deal to me. So. And so when I talk about why I didn't feel like an engineer. On the subject of jokes. So, what do you call a fake noodle? An imposter. No. And that's what I thought. So I thought I was faking my way through being an engineer, and I was terrified that someone was going to find out that I didn't know what I was doing. When in actuality, I did know what I was doing, and I was doing it a lot better than some people who would boast about it. And when I started to come to terms with it, there was one situation in mind that definitely changed the way that I look at this campaign, the way that I look at my career, and the way that I look at everybody that looks at me as an engineer. How many of you are from San Francisco? Woo! How many of you know what the Lex used to be? Woo! All right, me and you. Okay, so the Lexington was a bar in the Mission, and it was the only. People say it was the only lesbian bar for a while, but it was actually more than that. It was a neighborhood queer bar where people who didn't feel like they belonged in the Castro, or didn't feel that they belonged anywhere else in any other bar, or that they would be stared at, they would go to the Lexington and they would feel at home. And it was this big neighborhood bar that ended up being shut down after forever. And during Lex Forever, I had brought 4 friends with me. After Lex Forever, we went over to another bar. And, well, my 2 friends, and then my 2 friends, and then me, by myself. And somebody actually approached me and said, "Oh, hey, I'm not from here. What is there to do in the Mission?" And pretty much every other generic line that there is. Until we finally got to the fact that he was out with his company, and I asked what company. Turns out that I know the company. I actually do some work with the company. No, I will not tell anybody here what company that is, because that's not the point of the story. And I asked what he did. He said he was an engineer. He asked me what I did. I said, "Oh, I'm an engineer." He said, "Now you're fucking me. Are you a recruiter?" Nope, not a recruiter. So you're marketing. No. And I could tell that I was getting a little agitated, but I could also give him a little slack. Maybe he's just from somewhere else, or he has a different background, or maybe he just didn't know that what he was saying was really rude. And so I stopped him and said, "Actually, what you're saying is pretty rude, and I actually am an engineer. I just appreciate if you don't assume that I'm somebody else, or I do something else." And he said, "But you're fucking with me, right?" And at this point, I got pretty agitated, and I pulled over 4 of my friends, and of my 4 friends, front-end engineer, VC, single founder of a tech company, and another back-end engineer. And then I asked them, "Can you please tell him that I'm an engineer?" And, we're at a bar, so we're kind of drunk. And they're like, "No, Dom's an engineer, Dom's an engineer." And they told him what I did, and that, I work with these people, and so they know what I do. And he says, "Now you're all fucking with me. Why are you all fucking with me? Are you guys just all in the same recruiters?" And, no, we're not recruiters. And in fact, 2 of them got really upset, and I got pretty upset, and I said, "You know what? It was really nice to meet you. I wish I could say that, but I'm gonna go outside. I need some air, and I need to get away from you right now." And so I went outside, and a friend had followed me, made sure I was okay, and I just needed some air. And he followed me outside. And he comes up to me and says, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any offense. It's just that where I'm from, there's not a lot of female engineers. This is surprising to me." And I told him, and I looked him straight in the eye, and I said, "That's really nice, and I appreciate that you're giving me an apology, but I work with your company, and I work with all of your female engineers, so I know you have some." And he nodded, and he's like, "Okay, well, just prove it then, and I'll leave you alone. Just prove it you're an engineer." It is 1 a.m. in the Mission, and everybody had been drinking. And I told him, as politely as I could, "No, I will not prove to you that I'm an engineer." He asked me why. "I don't have anything to prove to you." And that was it. And my friend asked him to leave, said that he was being really menaceful and hurtful, and asked him to leave. He did. 2 minutes later, he comes back. So 2 minutes later, he comes back. He says, "Again, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. But can you not write about this? My company's about to go public. We can't go." And I looked him in the eye and I said, "I'm not going to talk bad about your company. I work with people at your company, and I think they're really great people. But I am going to talk to your HR and at least suggest some sensitivity trainings around this." I did end up talking to his HR department. I never said who it was. I never used anything that would make any distinction of who he was. But I recommended a bunch of unconscious bias trainings or sensitivity trainings. And that was that. I wrote a blog post about it, and people kind of every now and then will talk to me about it, and this is why I bring this up. Someone once asked me, how were you so calm? Why didn't you yell at him? Why didn't you hit him? Why didn't you make a scene and make him go away? And the simple answer was, I'm used to it. And it took me a while to realize that I shouldn't be used to it, that it wasn't a normal thing. And since then and around then, I've been doing a lot of talks about how I don't think that it's normal that someone challenges you only because you're female, or only because you're a person of color, or only because you are queer, or you don't have the CS background. I don't think that it's normal for someone to ask for a second code review on my code when a male counterpart or a male intern doesn't get the type of code reviews. And when I was at different companies, that's what it was like. And that was so normal to me. And I don't want that to be normal to anybody here, or to anybody at all. And so I said that I do a lot of talks. I do try to get out there and try to get people over their imposter syndrome. And I have a partner, and my partner asked, why do you do 5 events a week on top of your normal job, on top of Lesbians Who Tech, and on top of doing diversity and inclusion? Why do you do 5 a week? And that was a really simple answer. Back in February, I did an interview and I wrote a blog post about it. Didn't think anybody would see it. And I got an email on my website that said, thank you. And all it said was thank you. And in the body, it said, I am a single person of color who identifies as a lesbian, and I'm terrified of coming out. I live in Middle America, and I didn't think there was anybody out there like me. And that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I live in such a bubble here that I'm so used to seeing at least some part of my identity now with all these people, with everybody I'm surrounding myself with. And to hear that meant so much, and means that I will continuously talk about this so that nobody feels alone, because I remember what it was like to only see parts of my identity in one person, and parts of my identity in another person, and thinking that because all those identities weren't in places that I wanted to be in, it wasn't attainable to me. And so, I guess the big thing that I'm trying to say here is that my name is Dom. I am a Filipino American. I don't have a CS degree. I'm queer. I'm very happy doing what I do, and yes, I am an engineer.